By the early 20th century, the ultimate prize in polar exploration had already been claimed. A Norwegian team led by Roald Amundsen successfully reached the South Pole in 1911. For the British explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton, that meant setting a new, even more difficult objective. He planned to be the first person to walk across the entire Antarctic continent from coast to coast. To pull it off, he recruited 28 men and purchased a 3-masted wooden ship built specifically for polar conditions, the Endurance. Their route required sailing directly into the Weddell Sea, a notoriously violent stretch of water off the Antarctic coast. In January 1915, before the crew ever caught sight of the mainland, the sea froze early. The pack ice closed in around the Endurance, locking her in place for the winter. Historically, a ship becoming permanently trapped in the ice signaled the end for its crew. Without a way out, polar explorers typically succumb to starvation, scurvy, or the psychological collapse of total isolation. The continent-crossing mission was over before it began. With no hope of rescue and the nearest human settlement thousands of miles away, Shackleton was left to find a way to keep 28 men alive in the most hostile environment on Earth. The moment Shackleton realized the ship was stuck, he abandoned all thoughts of exploration. He established a single new metric for success, bringing every single man home alive. Shackleton prioritized morale over traditional naval discipline to combat the psychological toll of the ice. He organized dog sled races, hosted amateur theater performances, and kept the crew playing football even as the pack ice shifted beneath their feet. But the ice wasn't melting, it was moving. By October of 1915, the pressure of the shifting floes became too immense. On October 27th, the ship's wooden hull finally gave out. The crew salvaged 3 small lifeboats and whatever supplies they could carry before watching the Endurance sink into the depths. The men established Ocean Camp on the floating ice. Here, Shackleton relied on the motor expert and storekeeper Thomas Ord-Lees to manage their physical survival. Ord-Lees was highly cynical and generally unpopular, but Shackleton put him in charge of the food. He implemented a strict, meticulous rationing system for every remaining ounce of their salvaged supplies, ensuring the crew didn't exhaust their stores during the long wait. By dividing the burden of survival, Shackleton kept the crew functioning. He took on the work of maintaining hope and focus, while delegating the rigid, unpopular logistics to those with the temperament to enforce them. In April 1916, the ice beneath their camp began breaking apart. Shackleton ordered the men to launch the 3 lifeboats into the freezing, treacherous waters of the Weddell Sea. They spent 7 days navigating the deadly currents before finally making landfall on Elephant Island. For the first time in 497 days, the crew stood on solid ground. But they were far from safe. Elephant Island was a desolate rock, located entirely outside shipping lanes. Without a team leaving to find help, the entire crew would eventually perish on the beach. Shackleton chose to lead the rescue mission himself. To manage the 22 men staying behind, he relied on his stoic second-in-command, Frank Wild. Leaving Wild in charge provided the stranded men with a reliable authority. For months, he enforced a routine that prevented the group from descending into despair while they waited on a freezing beach, with no guarantee that help was coming. Shackleton's 6-man crew sailed an 800-mile journey to South Georgia Island through the Drake Passage, Earth's most violent ocean. Navigating hurricane winds and rogue waves, Captain Worsley calculated their trajectory using a sextant. Missing the tiny island meant being lost in the Atlantic forever. After 16 days, they reached South Georgia, but landed on the wrong side of the island. To reach the whaling station, Shackleton, Worsley, and 1 other crewmate trekked non-stop for 36 hours across unmapped, freezing glaciers and mountain peaks. Overcoming environments designed to kill you requires hyper-specialized human skills. Survival depended on the precise deployment of Worsley's navigation and Shackleton's endurance at the absolute limit of what is physically possible. Reaching the rest of the crew was another struggle. Over the next 3 months, Shackleton made 4 separate attempts using borrowed ships to punch back through the winter ice that surrounded Elephant Island. On August 30th, 1916, Shackleton finally reached the island. As his boat approached the beach, he saw Frank Wild and all 22 men waiting. They returned to civilization with a record that redefined the history of polar exploration. Despite being trapped in the Antarctic for nearly 2 years, enduring shipwrecks, hurricane-force winds, and unmapped mountains, every single member of the 28-man crew survived. The Endurance expedition failed its primary objective. They never touched the Antarctic mainland, and they never crossed the continent. Yet the mission is remembered as one of history's greatest triumphs. The Endurance redefined leadership as the agility to recognize a dead mission and immediately set a new, achievable metric for success the moment disaster strikes.